don't fake who you are like that way, because the worst thing you want to be found out is that you're lying. And then also if you start lying, then you have to start, I can't lie because I just don't get it. Because then you have to remember your lie. And then you have to add another lie and then another lie. And the next thing you know, it's like,
cobweb of lies.
Oh God, it's pain. I don't have that much time.
So if you reflect, as you reflect right now, are you embarrassed of what you did?
No, I'm not embarrassed by it because it's part of the journey, right?
Yeah.
I wouldn't have known what I know now if I didn't know what I did back then.
Hello and welcome, and we are back to the DC Talks podcast. I'm your co-host, Agent Double O, and we got David Chinelli here.
Did you notice I stopped correcting you?
Yes, thank you. We got DC here in the Oxblood jacket, man. How you doing?
Oxblood, I guess. Yeah, I'm doing all right, man. I'm doing all right.
That's a proper color combo. I actually just noticed like the shirt in there. It really gives like a nice gold touch.
Yeah, man.
Looks like royalty, man.
That's for my buddy Robbie there from Holt Renfrew. He's the one.
Robbie, we met him. He came into the mortgage broker.
That's right.
Event you had with Rocco.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's right.
A lot of people these days don't show up as themselves. And you are someone who's constantly around people. You're giving tours. You're, shaking hands with a lot of people.
Almost feel like a politician, huh?
Almost like a politician, man. Kissing hands.
Just not dirty like
shaking
a
hands,
politician.
kissing babies, as they say, right? In your opinion, right? When do you know someone isn't showing up as their true, authentic self?
It's happened a lot of times. It's like, you see somebody, the persona in real life, and then you realize it's like, oh, like, you see somebody on their Instagram and you see them in real life and they're like kind of all like they're messed. They're all over the place. Their head's not always there. There's been situations in which, people put up a front self about them and then they're like, all of a sudden they're not coming to parties. They're not coming there. They're not going out. They're not doing anything. And you realize it's like, yeah, they don't have any money. That's why they portray as if they're somebody else, but that because they want to put this fake front, but when push comes to shove, it's like, no, they're not at all who they say they are. It happens for money wise. It happens for even if you look at Chris Sky, I don't know if you I was just watching him the other day.
The guy was running for mayor?
Yeah. Well, the guy like neck tattoos and all this talk. Like, listen, he's a big name, but his wife as well, he just divorcing his wife because apparently, she was becoming an escort all of a sudden, and behind everybody, in front of everybody, she's like, God first and all those other things. And behind the scenes, she's actually prostituting herself for money.
Is she like on OnlyFans or actually just actually doing it? Yeah. Being with other dudes.
She was being with other dudes for money.
Wow.
Yeah. I just learned about it, read it yesterday. I was like, holy crap. Yeah. Yeah. So it was kind of an eye opener, and it's a public figure too. Right. And it's like, and she would again, on all of her things. It's like, it's funny. You see some of these people on Instagram say God first. And they're like, oh, here's my OnlyFans page. I'm like, no, that doesn't make sense. And that she was, doing that.
It's hypocritical.
Very hypocritical.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I find that in our industry, and not even industry, in today's life, it's like, everyone's trying to keep up with the Joneses. Yeah. Everybody's trying to be something they're not. Why? They're not. That's not authentic to themselves at all. They're trying to follow along. And I remember we went to see one of Natalie's friends. We're at Holt Renfrew, and he's talking about the one in Yorkdale. And for those who are in the States, it's one of the bigger malls. And Holt Renfrew's is this huge store that has all these high-end brands. And he was saying these 15-year-old kids are coming in. They would only want to spend $1,500 on a T-shirt. And I'm like, $1,500 on a T-shirt, and they're 14, 15 years old. I'm like, what the hell? And he goes, yeah, that's what our culture is. They want to show as if they have all this money, but these kids are 15 and 16 years old. Their parents don't have any money. They didn't come in rich and stuff too. Look at all that. And it's just, they want to pretend that they have all this money. So they'll buy one big item to show this is what I got. I'm like, that's setting up. It's ingraining at a really young age and trying to be something you're not.
Exactly. And you're noticing this a lot in the Western society, right?
Yeah.
It's keeping up with the Joneses, trying to flex all the time. In your opinion, what do you think is the main driving factor for this type of behavior?
Social media, buddy.
Social media.
It's huge, right? You have guys like Andrew Tate, or you have showing all the money, blinging, and all this kind of stuff, telling people they're like him or hate him. He always has lots of money and stuff too, and he's like, I can say what I want.
Driving the fastest cars, Bugatti.
Yeah, and then you have other people that are doing on social media saying they pull up to a nice car, and like all these platforms like, oh, what do you do for a living? And they're like, so it's a lot on social media. You go in, you see a lot of bling, and these people like rappers as well, like, on throwing their money around. And yeah, I saw this one lady, she was on social media and like showing all the bling she had, like, and had all this wad of cash. And this guy really reached in and grabbed her money on social, like, and stole her money, like, but she was flexing all the money that she had, right? Yeah, I think a lot of it has to do with social media, how accessible we are.
Yeah.
And that people try to portray something that they're not.
Like when you are doing tours and you have people coming in to view a house, when have you ever, like, your radar must be like off the chain now. You know when someone's got it and when someone doesn't have it. What are some of the things that you notice that the people who don't got it behave around when they're looking for a house that that they potentially cannot afford because they're trying to keep up with the Joneses?
Well, you mean like during like open house or something?
Yeah, right. Like they come and check out a house and you're like, I don't think this person is the right fit because I feel like they're trying to overextend themselves to buy this type of property.
Well, some of the questions or like that they'll have or what they'll say. And it's like, oh, I got so-and-so, my friends over here. And they try to name drop some people and they're like, look at it and you're like, that's usually a sign.
It's a big sign.
Big sign. The people that have the confirmed showing, like, for example, I had an open house for a $2.5 million home or $3 million home. And the guy that ended up buying it was walking around in shorts and a t-shirt, older gentleman, and I just kind of asked the right questions, took his time, didn't say anything. The people I knew weren't going to buy the house are like, yeah, I know this neighborhood well. I've watched this some too. I was thinking about putting an offer in at, house down the street, but, got 3.2 million. I thought it was a little overpriced. I'm like, I would only pay 3.1.
They're trying to overcompensate for it.
Always overcompensate. Yeah. They're always trying to push the agenda and trying to think that you're dumb enough. Like, oh, I believe
it's as if they're trying to convince you that they do have it in a way. And like, that's like a big sign of like, I'm afraid that you see me for what I truly am, and I'm going to do everything I can to maybe potentially destroy that image that you think I don't got it.
It's a quiet confidence that gets the deal. That's what I find. The quiet confidence of people that know themselves and they're sure of themselves. Those are all the people that, first of all, attract more attention to themselves when they're not in the public view and it's just private. It's like you go to a party and it's like, the person that's confident in themselves and like who they are. There's a lot of people that like get attracted to that, right? And that's who they are. Or the people are just like, or if you're an asshole, you're okay with that. You're like, you're okay. You're just smug. You kind of know that. That's fine too, right? Exactly. Whereas I find that with social media is like, they're always trying to push, like, look what I got. Look at me now. Look at me now. Look at me now. That's always a look at me now.
Yeah.
And, even going through the OnlyFans, you brought that up, OnlyFans. I find that a lot of those people, like, sure, some of them are looking for money, but they're also the attention seekers, a lot of them, right? It's like, I don't know what it is. And it's like, oh, I didn't get this. And so, hey, I always just throw this OnlyFans out there too. They're seeking that attention for something maybe they weren't before, but they're, I don't know. I don't know. I just don't get, it seems like everybody now, like all these things that pop up in my reels, it's like, you see somebody like all of a sudden like, oh, this girl was nice. All of a sudden she's half naked. And I'll guarantee she has an OnlyFans. It's like everybody has an OnlyFans now.
It's a common thing now. Like it's going to be completely normal for you to have an OnlyFans. And for example, like I'm
not having an OnlyFans.
No, not you, but
my kids are not. We're in the back room right now. I will fight tooth and nail to make sure they don't have an OnlyFans account. Unless they're showing their feet. Okay, then I'll give that. I don't know. That's just gross.
But that's just disgusting. But, we're talking about like the inauthentic side of things, yeah? And as we get older, there is such a thing as timelines where people feel as if like they should be somewhere at this specific age. They should be somewhere by 35, by 40. You've been married. You have a family now. You're well established. And, your main circle is people who are around like your age pretty much. Do you feel like that inauthenticity for some of the people within your, at the stage of life that you're at, they can feel as if like, okay, these are my friends. Oh, I just see David just bought a new house. Oh, I see Johnny just bought this new Ferrari or whatever. And they have to feel as if they have to try and keep up with you because society's telling them you should be here by this age. Like you cannot be living in a studio apartment, even though that's where you should be at, just to like, slowly take your time. But the inauthenticity, maybe they are authentic, but maybe they just feel like I am not where I'm supposed to be. So let me try and be around these circle of people because I want to be like a David Chinelli. I want to be like a Jennifer Johnson.
Yeah, I watched this video the other day.
You know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, I do. And it was funny. They were comparing people and they're like, like the guy's name, and he graduated from university with 4 degrees at 26, dead by the age of 52. Then you look at, Colonel Sanders didn't start until got turned down.
First KFC.
It was like 67
something.
or
Yeah.
And it's like, and he became a billionaire by the time he was 80 or something like that too. The idea is like, everybody's on their own timeline. This is what you have to understand. You can't compare me to you. We have different set of skills. We have different upbringing. Like, I can't even compare myself to my brothers, even though we were born in the same house, born in different eras, different experiences. We have to be authentic to ourselves to figure out like we have different core, not even beliefs, but different core attributes, which makes us us. So we have a different time frame. We have different things. Maybe you didn't have the experiences in which which we're supposed to bring you to who you are. Mm-hmm. But what I find is that people are having the biggest issues when they're comparing themselves and try to force the situation. I have at least 2 friends that are divorced now that needed to be married by the time they were 30.
They needed to. You have to be married.
I have to be married by the time I'm 30 years old. I met somebody. I'm like, one of them, I met him after 6 months, married.
And this is self-inflicted pressure, not family pressure.
Self-inflicted pressure. Nobody else is giving this pressure on them, and divorced by the time before they're 40. Divorced, kids and everything too. Another friend of mine too, remember talking with her at work, and she was like, and I remember saying to her, I'm like, is this the person for you? And I just, well, I remember her saying to me, she's like, well, I don't want to be alone. Excuse me? Like, that's what you're worried about? Married, kids, moved out, and then they're divorced. Both of them remarried now. And it's like, because they tried to force who they were, not being authentic to who they are as a person, what their experiences, what their needs were as individuals. I cannot compare myself to anybody because it's just not fair to myself. You can't compare yourself to me. My friends can't compare. Like, I got friends that are way wealthier than us. One of our friends we have owns a software company. He's built a house down the street from Drake. He's got 6 or 7 Ferraris. Imagine me trying to compare myself to him.
He's millies deep. He's got the bag.
His name's Joe. He's a fantastic guy. He's such a sweetheart. But I imagine if I would drive myself crazy
to try and keep up with him.
I'd be broke. I'd be like I don't even know how to start with that. Right? But it's not fair to compare yourself to that again.
Would you say there's like a place where fake it till you make it has a place in it? Because, fake it till you make it, you're still being inauthentic, but we always push out this narrative, fake it till you make it, like act as if you got it until you got it. What do you think about that?
To some degree, sure.
Okay.
Yeah, when we started real estate too, although it's different for me, again, because I was doing real estate before I was actually a realtor. So I kind of was not necessarily faking, but kind of using what I knew, but also realizing that it's okay to be vulnerable as well. I'd like to explain that to you. But yeah, I've heard that a lot, like fake it till you make it. And to a certain degree, don't go out and buy a Ferrari if you're living on a shoestring budget. It just doesn't make sense. You're just going to bury yourself and make more and more pressure. But there's some situations, which if you have some knowledge on the topic, but don't be arrogant about it as well, right? That, I think that's a big part of it.
Yeah, there's one time my uncle, he's not really my blood uncle, but just out of respect, I call him uncle.
Yeah.
He was saying that when he bought a Mercedes, he was a realtor as well too in the Saga area. Once he bought his Mercedes, his clients started taking it more serious. Even though he could afford a Mercedes, he didn't need a Mercedes because they had a Kia, they had a Toyota, one of those economical cars. But once he bought a Mercedes, he'd show up to these showings and he'll notice that his conversions just went up even higher because people are like, okay, I'm dealing with someone who's actually successful. Yeah,
that helped for me too. I went from when I first started, I had a Jeep Grand Cherokee, nice car.
Yeah,
it was a nice truck. Then I got when I went to my Porsche Cayenne. Yeah, it was a level now. I have my other Porsche I drive now too, and it's but you got to be careful because there are some people that won't work for you because they're like, well, this guy makes too much money either. So they're like, well, I think he does too well. So it helps you to some degree, but be careful. I remember Sam McDaddy, for example, which is big in Mississauga. He pulls up sometimes in a Ferrari. People are like, look at this arrogant prick, even though he's the nicest guy in the world, right? there are some people that will look at you like, oh, this guy's successful. I need to be in that aura. But you will have some, some people that will hate you for it.
Yeah. There's this one sales guy I follow. He gives a lot of like sales advice. He would say that, once he started, becoming like one of the top sales people in his firm, he would park far away from the meeting and walk to the meeting, because if he parked right outside like the office and they see him coming out of like a AMG Mercedes or whatever, they'll think, oh, like, okay, this guy is hoity-toity. Like, why am I going to give him this deal or whatever? So he had to humble himself in the eyes of the executives, because he didn't want to come off as like, oh, this guy's flashy, he's whatever. So he'd take that in. He'll park far away, take a bus, then pull up on foot just to like appear at the meeting, just to seem humble.
My cousins, two of them, one of them is in construction. He's one helped build here, Anthony. He says like he's got like nice cars, he's got a Porsche, he's got like, like nice, like he's got a few of them. He cannot show up to the job site like that, because people are like, look at this asshole. I'm not going to work for him. His brother-in-law too, Carmen, same thing. Like he's a property manager. He's got a nice, Shelby like Mustang. He goes, could you imagine I show up to the job site that people are going to tell me to go screw myself? Like it's perception, right? So there are certain areas in which you can quote unquote flex a little bit, but there are others you absolutely cannot. So in real estate, again, there's a fine barrier. Like, again, if I can't show up in a Ferrari, not to say like, I don't even know if I could, like, whatever, even if I could afford one and stuff too, I just wouldn't do it, because it's almost like a slap. Like, well, I'm earning money from you, like basically for my job. And it's like, it's kind of like a slap in the face sometimes people feel.
Exactly. For yourself, DC, are there times you've shown up in an interaction as the inauthentic version of yourself just to be accepted?
I think in the beginning, yeah.
In the beginning?
Yeah.
What happened?
Well, I remember one of the first leases I did, or the first deal I did, and the girl was asking me, she goes, oh, you must be doing this a lot and stuff too. And I'm like, yeah, I kind of faked it. I'm like, sure, I've been doing it, but I was kind of doing it, but I wasn't a realtor. I was literally a realtor for like a month. This is like my first transaction. It felt a little fake and kind of awkward to me. And I was like, and then when I was knocking on doors and people would ask me questions, and I would like, that's in the first beginning, because I didn't really have a lot of coaching back then. I didn't really, embrace who I was like in the beginning, that I was a young agent, until I had a coach tell me, he's like, no, like I would door knock and say, hey, I'm David Chinelli. I'm a realtor with Royal LePage Signature. Great. Do you know this area well? Oh, no, I live close by. Meanwhile, it's half an hour away. Oh, do you have, how many sales have you done lately? I'm like, and I would say, well, our brokerage. And I would talk about like, not me.
You have truths, you'd mask it.
You would mask it, right? So then until I had a coach, again, like my coach, Rob Vivian at the time, he's like, listen, there are going to be people that want to work with you no matter what stage of the business you're in. So just embrace who you are. So if you have in there too. And also like I made sure I lined myself up with a good backing system. So a good brokerage, a good like people to help me out with in case they had questions like that, which I couldn't answer, or I could like, oh, what's your history? I'm like, well, myself, I only have these couple of sales, but I work with David Chinelli. He's, the top realtors and blah, 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 right? That's how you go. Like, that's how you get past that. But I would now, any new person coming into any industry, don't fake who you are like that way, because the worst thing you want to be found out is that you're lying. And then also if you start lying, then you have to start, I can't lie because I just don't get it. Because then you have to remember your lie. And then you have to add another lie and then another lie. And then next thing you know, it's like,
cobweb of lies.
Oh God, it's pain. I don't have that much time.
So if you reflect, as you reflect right now, are you embarrassed of what you did?
No, I'm not embarrassed by it because it's part of the journey, right?
Yeah.
I wouldn't have known what I know now if I didn't know what I did back then. Again, it wasn't a lot. It wasn't like, but I remember feeling awkward about it. And I remember that feeling. So would I be myself now if I didn't have that? No, like I think our experiences are experiences. Same thing when you go picking up girls back in the day, try to be like, you ever seen those shows in the 80s and like you go pick up girls and stuff too, and everyone's just like awkward and they would pretend to be someone they're not just to get the girl, and they would find out and later on they're like, why didn't you just be yourself?
Exactly.
And then they get together later on. Well, it's kind of the same shit.
It's kind of like that, yeah. It's kind of like that. Even like watching Hitch. Did you watch Hitch?
I remember watching Hitch.
Remember Albert Brenneman? He tried to like come off as that. So Albert Brenneman is Kevin James.
Yeah.
And he does like all these like bad boy stuff because Will Smith Hitch is telling him, toss the puffer or whatever, like act like you're a dick to her or whatever. That was pretty funny. Like when I watched it, even like remember Keys to the VIP? Remember that show?
No.
It was on Comedy Network, like back in the mid 2000s.
I was in the States, and then maybe that's
Oh,
why.
I think you're in Wisconsin, right?
Yeah,
But yeah, man, like I think in dating is like where inauthenticity comes off, because even in dating apps, you can say, yo, I'm like 6'2", right?
I think those comedians, anybody who tells you they're 5'10", let's be honest, all guys 5'10", we're all 5'6" and a half.
5'10". Man, honestly, I used to be that guy who used to say, yo, I'm like 6 feet. But I'm like, you know what, man? I'm just going to claim my height. I'm actually like 5'10" and a half. Like, I'll just say 5'10".
Well, what also messed me up was when I'm playing my hockey days, they used to bump you up to like, you're 6 feet. I'm like, so I thought I was 6 feet. And then, as you get older, you shrink a little bit too. Then I was like 5'11". I'm like, well, what happened? Now I go to my doctor. He's like, yeah, you're 5'10" in a bed. I'm like, what the what?
Yep.
Yeah.
You know, you just got to accept that, because, and actually, once I actually got off that, because when I was playing basketball, our coach used to do that, the same thing. When you look at the basketball program, you look at the players, look at their stats and look at everything. Okay. Me and my boy, the point guard, Mike, who ended up having a great career in university, he's like 5'9", right? I'm taller than Mike. And our coach, trust me, I am, right? He'd come off as like 6 feet. I'm like, how the hell is Mike Rock 6 feet? Like, where's this coming from? But now as like I'm heading into my 30s and whatever, I'm super happy with who I am. Like, there's no need to boost just to seem as if what's accepted in society is being a tall dude. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, it comes back to, again, we talked about this podcast before, and it's like about loving yourself and knowing yourself. And it is a journey. And like, this is what I also don't understand with kids, like when they're kind of, we're not going to talk about all the, the movements that are happening there too. But I think a lot of kids still have to go through a lot of growing up. But I think a lot of adults have to do that too. They have to grow up who they are. You might be like a 35-year-old who has 2 kids. You haven't grown up because you haven't accepted yourself, who you are. We haven't, I talk about my brother too, who's handicapped, and I still say he doesn't accept it who he is. Like, he still thinks people don't think he's handicapped. Like, he's never accepted who he is. If you can't accept who you are, it's hard to love yourself, right? And it's hard to grow. So if you want to grow, if you want to be successful, if you want to, do things in life that matter to people, look inwards first, figure out who you are, accept who you are, and make yourself better. Change. You can't change something if you're always masking it with something else. It's not going to get better. You can't get to the root of a problem if you're just putting a Band-Aid on it over and over and over again. If you're in financial trouble, stop fucking putting a Band-Aid on it. It's going to kill you. Talk to somebody who can help you, fix the problem, and then work on it. If it's something in your personal life that you're having mental problems, stop fucking putting just drugs in your body just to fucking put a Band-Aid on it just so you can get to the root of the problem. And a lot of that has to do with going inside, whether it's inner yourself, looking at your financials, whatever situation is. Stop doing the problems which continue to make it worse.
Yeah. And do you also find that the most authentic people are usually the most hated by everybody? Because I feel like,
wait a second. So if I'm not hated enough, people aren't, that means I'm not.
No. I think the authenticity, it really showcases people's insecurities in themselves, because they're like, wow, that guy, that girl has so much confidence in who they are that they can show up as themselves wherever. They're not afraid to look like a fool. They're not afraid to be who they are. And that shine that comes out of them.
Or are they overcompensating?
I don't think so. You think they're overconfident?
I think some people sometimes overcompensate too. Like, for example, like, I'm confident in most of the stuff too, but I have a lot of insecurities. We do. It's just that we all do. Like, to think that you don't have any insecurities, but you're trying to work through them.
But the fact that you own those insecurities, the fact that you're actually comfortable admitting that, showcasing the bright spots and the dark spots, that shows people like, wow, this person is so comfortable in their own skin that they can show this part of themselves. And the person looking at themselves like, wow, I wish I had the confidence to own the bad parts about myself that I'm afraid to really share, right? Sure. So that, in my opinion, I find people who have like a healthy balance of both, and they showcase their down parts, their bright parts. Those people end up being where a lot of people are jealous of them, because people wish they had the power to be able to showcase that other part of themselves that isn't being displayed.
I'll give you that one. Sure.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I hear that.
Do you think brutal honesty can be a turnoff for a lot of people, even though we champion honesty?
oh shit, I get in trouble from Natalie all the time that I'm too honest.
You're too honest.
I'm too honest. I'll have I'll send stuff to my sister-in-law, which we have arguments about certain things. You can read into that what you want, especially during the pandemic. We're going back and forth about certain things. And I still talk to her about it. She's like, why do you bother her all the time? And it's like, no, because I'm like, I want to be honest. I'm like, I want her to open up. We talked about the satanic agenda before in the last podcast. I've been telling her about that since 2008, 2009. And she just, like I was just honest about it.
She's asleep.
But she wanted to be, right? And it was like, but that was, sometimes you got to pull it back. But I've been known for people to say that, like, well, with my dad too. Like my dad was the same way. He was like, well, at least you don't have to think about where you stand with Carmen. That was my dad's name. It was like, I kind of took on that attribute. I think maybe softer of a blow, but yeah, some people just don't like that. Like I have another friend, like Natalie's friend, Kelly. And that's the thing. She's like, well, since we were kids, she's like, you don't sugarcoat things. You kind of tell me even if I don't want to hear it. I'm like, well, what's it going to help you if I don't tell you the truth? Like, how does that help you if I just sugarcoat everything? It doesn't help anybody. It makes you feel better.
Yeah.
Great.
That's what I'm saying. Like we champion authenticity in everybody, but then when we do get it,
nobody likes it against them.
Nobody likes it against them. I'm like, so what are you asking for here? Like, you want me to keep it real with you, and then I'm keeping it real, but your feelings are hurt.
Well, again, a lot of it's ownership too.
Yeah, that's why I respect people who keep it a buck all the time. Like, tell me how you're feeling, whatever it is, we'll sort through it.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I don't want to feel as if like you're hiding something from me. And like, what you want people to show up as their best version of themselves. If they are feeling some type of way, you'll feel some type of way about it and own it. Right. And let's get past it. So that's one thing I noticed about you too, right? You keep it very honest. And I know that can rub people the wrong way.
Well, in our first conversation, when I razz you guys, too, like, who I am, right? Yeah. I don't hold back. Like, it's just, that's me. Exactly. And I am too much for some people. I get it.
Yeah.
And
that's not for everybody.
I'm not for everybody. I'm an acquired taste.
As we work towards wrapping up, man, who's one person that embodies authenticity to you that you're like, wow, I really look up to that person because of who they are. They own who they are. And I have a high respect for that man or woman.
I actually don't have anybody that comes to my mind to think about that, to be honest with you. I don't know. Because I think the stuff that we've been seeing lately is all on the media. And I believe a lot of them are playing with many different faces.
They're puppets.
Yeah. Totally. Yeah. Like, so it doesn't matter if it's through government, if it's through media, even the freaking hockey players and stuff too, where they're coached of what they say on media and things like that. You can't say that shit. I'm like, really? Like Elon Musk sometimes too, he comes out and he'll say stuff too, but I wonder if he has somebody just working on his Twitter account and doesn't care. I like Jordan Peterson. I do. I think that he's authentic and he's almost lost his career of it, like because of that.
He's
kind of
no longer a professor at U of T because of the stuff he believed.
But what did he do that was wrong?
He kept it too real.
So
there's a realness meter that we have in society.
Yeah. So, and I know people might don't know, I always argue. I've had this argument too. And I even talk about Andrew Tate. And I said to my wife, because she's like, how do you like this guy? I'm like, who said I liked him? There's certain things he says I agree with, but it doesn't mean I love the guy. But I'm like, but if you can, instead of listening to the media, what they said to him, just show me what you don't like about him and let's talk. And she never brought him on. She's like, well, he's a misogynist. I'm like, great. Show me where he said that in the context he said it. I'm like, I will agree with you. I'm like, I haven't really made it my opinion on him, but you assume that I like this guy. I'm like, I like the snippet he said over here. I would agree with that. And I find that with most people. Yeah. There's some things I like, and we talked about this in the past. Like, sure, Jordan Peterson, there's some things he says he likes, some things I'm like, not so much. Like, but there's other people too that are like atheists and stuff too that have said things. I'm like, I actually kind of like that stuff too. It's like, we could talk about that.
Like, you're allowed to agree and disagree.
Exactly.
It's not like that person, oh yeah, I hate this person. And they're labeled let's say Andrew Tate, misogynist. And you say you like Andrew Tate. It's like, how do you like, he's a misogynist? Da, 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 da. Yeah. I was like, tell me one thing. And they're just like, I don't want to talk about it. And they just run away.
Happens all the time. It just blows my mind. So it's like, do I look up to anybody?
It's
not
like
really.
Program like that.
Yeah. So I would say, no, I don't look up to anybody, that kind of stuff. There's certain snippets I appreciate and what they've done and what they've said. And it's like, I like the fact that Jordan Peterson talked out from that. I like, there's certain things that, Andrew Tate talked about. There's Polyev talks about some stuff, but again, Polyev is not sometimes I think he's too much of a dictator. So I can't say that I like any of them too, because it's like, you don't want to be associated just, well, he said this, so you must love it. I'm like, or she says this. I'm like, no, not at all.
You know what you are? You're loyal to your logical reasoning. That's what it is.
Yeah. And
that is not allowed these days. You can't be reasonable. You have to be either like on one side or the left.
Yeah.
So no, man. But talk about that. Like, you spoke about Jordan Peterson, all these other people in the media, but what about in your life? Like, who is that person?
I guess a lot of it are family members too. I've talked from my dad was one way, my Uncle Mario. Yeah. My Uncle Mario, my brother always gets scared of him because he gets scared, he gets angry because he just kind of says what he feels. He'll lecture you and tell you whether you want to hear it or not. Right? Actually, most of our uncles are that way. Like my Uncle John, a little less, but even my Uncle Frank on the other side too. Like you kind of know where you stood with them. So I would say a lot of our family members, the way we grew up, and even my cousins to some degree, but more of my uncles are just like, for example, when you're gaining weight and you're just not feeling great about yourself, you don't want to go to family parties. Sort of like, hey, chubby, what's up? You know what I mean? I was like, asshole. Yeah. Like it was one of those kind of situations. Or my dad, remember when I came back from university and and I gained weight and I was like, and he grabbed my fat and he's like, what's this? And I'm like, dude, I'm on vacation. Give me and I lost it in when I was in like 2 weeks, whatever it was, or for a month, whatever it was. And I'm like, yeah, I know. And he just like, thanks.
Just likes to razz you.
Of course.
Yeah, of course, man.
So yeah, I would say definitely our family members, like it or not. They're not always right, but they will tell you what they feel is right.
Mm-hmm. Amazing, man. Well, DC, great show. Any last words that you want to share with the audience? Yeah. So basically, if you haven't done it yet, look inwards, take some time, even every single morning. First of all, have gratitude, thankful for where you are. Mm-hmm. It doesn't matter any position today. Thank the people that are around you. Be grateful you're alive. But the thing is, next is like, look inner. Like, what is it about you that you don't like? What is it that you like? Mm-hmm. Who are you? Before you figure out who you are, you're not going to be able to help other people or progress in life. So those are two things I would say. So take the time to learn who yourself is. Does that make sense? Makes sense. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that is episode 31. We'll see you next week. And don't forget to subscribe, comment, like, and share this podcast with your audience. And we'll talk to you soon. Have a great week, everyone.
See you guys.
Peace.